This is the Future of the Future show. I am your host, Mateo Berbejicio. People are, especially for service companies, the most important asset for a business. Building the right culture so the right people want to stay and contribute is key to success. Easier said than done in today's world of remote work and uncertainty. What are the keys to understanding and building the culture you need? Joining me today is Alice Yoo LeClair, Head of Talent, Culture and Performance at Ascendion, a global leader in digital engineering and talent orchestration. Alice has spearheaded Ascendion's efforts in aligning human capital strategy with business goals, ultimately transforming the way organizations build and scale digital products. She leads thousands of people working across the world, right? In our conversation today, we will explore Ascendion's mission, how they help enterprises tackle digital transformation and talent challenges, Alice's journey, her career path, leadership philosophy, and what drives her and energizes her in this work, and our collective thoughts on building strong, inclusive tech cultures, especially in hybrid or remote environments across the world. Whether you care about DEI, remote work, or human-centered leadership in technology, this episode is for you. Alice, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me. Looking forward to our conversation today.
Very good. Alice, can you open by explaining Ascendion's mission and what key problems you are helping clients solve today?
Yes, I would be happy to. It's one of my favorite things to talk about with just about anybody. Ascendion is a leading provider of AI-first software engineering services. We have a beautiful base of 11,000, actually over 11,000 ascenders across 12 countries, serving upwards of 400 enterprise clients, including 36% of the Fortune 500.
Wow.
Our mission is to impact 1 billion lives, powered by generative AI and agentic systems with a technology that we're so proud to say has been validated by industry experts like Gartner, HFS, and ISG. And we partner very proudly with hyperscalers like AWS, Microsoft, and Google. But I don't want to just leave it at the technology and innovation where we're leading the way. Our culture also drives social impact. And so here at Ascendion, we've planted thousands of trees. We've sponsored education for girls in India, and we have supported many communities of which we proudly include in terms of our focus and our mission. So where does all of that lead in terms of what we've recognized in our organization? We recognize the world runs on software. And software is best when it is engineered in ways that are high quality and agentic and empowered to drive optimization and efficiency for our clients and the communities that they serve.
So how do you balance all of those elements, right? Quality engineer, AI, people strategy, culture. How do you do all of that while ensuring a positive team culture and quality delivery?
That's a wonderful question. And it's in its own right a question that I roll out of bed and enjoy contemplating, because my role, in fact, is to drive growth across Ascendion's human capital portfolio. It's a portfolio that has grown organically and inorganically. We, in the human capital space at Ascendion, we also leverage AI first strategies because we, of course, want our people to align with scale, agility, and connection for global impact, no matter what their role is. So my career expertise, it lies in organizational performance. And so that to me is where you can really create some great foundations in terms of company mindset. Performance is not achieved by somebody on an island. Performance is achieved across the entire enterprise with people bringing their craft and bringing a mindset where they're open to intersecting with the current wave of AI technologies and tools in order to do what they're setting out to do with a companion, with that co-pilot, and being able to address problems differently, confidently, and in a more focused way. Hopefully that answered your question, but if not, then keep prodding at it and I'll be happy to go there.
No, I think it does. And I also wanted to ask you, so more than 11,000 people, right? But this has been an amazing growth story. When you started, how many people were there when you started? And, walk me a little bit through that journey of growth and your role in that journey of growth.
When I started, Ascendion was half that size. As a brand, we spun out in October of 2022. I joined the organization in July. So I had about 90 days to learn and to network, to be educated and to be mentored by people in the organization that were kind, that were generous, and that were incredibly intelligent. The growth of our headcount is something that we were so pleased to step into last year, where we came together with what we refer to in our Ascendion organization as the global growth markets. So when I joined the organization, we were serving clients and colleagues in the Americas as well as India. With the coming together of global growth markets, we now have APAC, Europe, the United Kingdom. This, of course, is not only of great benefit for our ascenders, but it also creates tremendous returns for our clients because they are some of the biggest well-known brands in the world. And so they don't necessarily want to compartmentalize doing big things, scalable things with their software and technology with different entities. This way, we can come forward with an authentic go-to-market approach to tell them the story of our engineering capabilities with the now proven ability to do that around the world for them. And speaking of go-to-market, that's another career specialty of mine is go-to-market transformation, where we take those big fundamental questions of what are we showcasing, where are we showcasing it, what is the promise of impact and delivery and value that we can confidently converse and consult on, and where might there be an addressable market that we maybe haven't considered before, that we might want to consider now. Timing, intersection with timing, market and industry and global economy is everything. And it's the better company that is always asking itself really deep, important, big questions when it comes to their go-to-market framework and model.
Let's talk a little bit about your journey, Alice. When you were a teenager, did you ever dream about getting to where you are today and leading, 11,000 people across so many countries around the world and doing everything that you do?
Well, first, let me say Alice as a teenager was a melodramatic mess of a human being, and that's okay. I think the term that my mom and dad's generation likes to use is late bloomer, so I'll take it. I was, as a teenager, an orchestra nerd before being a nerd became a cool thing. I was also one of the only East Asian students at my high school, and I was not socially what would have been considered cool at the time. So my dreams at that point were very much teenage dreams. Meeting someone from a boy band, having flawless skin and perfectly aligned teeth, having a date with so-and-so. Now, what occupied my time very intensively outside of going to school was classical music. I was a pianist, a violinist, and I also learned the flute, the cello, and the viola, but I didn't take those up seriously like I did piano and violin. Having said all that, there was an expectation in my house growing up that when summertime came, you would have a job and go to work every day. So I signed up with a temp agency in the summers, and these were clerical jobs. But what they did was they exposed me to office environments. And while sitting in those office environments, being the curious, socially awkward, over my skis kind of personality that I had and still have to this day, I would talk to people in the office about what went on at the company. And then further to that, what was their role in the company? And of course, when you sign up with a temp agency, summer over summer, from your teenage years onward, all through your college experiences as well, you get exposed to a lot of different companies. And you get to meet a variety of people. And I was very lucky in that everywhere that I worked, the professionals that I interacted with were very accommodating and very kind when it came to my questions. They also, if I'm being frank, got a big kick out of me because there I was, a teenager, and if there wasn't anything to do, I would find things to do. I would organize and clean and help and carry and deliver, and I would pop around and look for opportunities to find something better than I left it. And at that age, and with the lack of skills, material skills that I had at the time, it often involved being in environments such as the mailroom or the cafe or the delivery center. So while on the one hand, the temp agency would place me in the mid to higher level office environments during the workday. Again, if there was downtime, I would then have the opportunity to see how the other half of the soul of the organization operated. At the time, I had no idea that what I was actually accumulating was a wealth of perspectives on what it meant to have a career, what it meant to come to work with a job to do. Ultimately, I went to college. I went to university in Connecticut. I double majored in music and English, which has absolutely no business world relevance beyond a few things. But not knowing what I wanted to do, I got a full scholarship to law school. That wasn't what I thought it was going to be. So I signed with a staffing agency and they placed me in the human resources department. And that is where I got front row seat, everyday exposure to what is less referred to as human resources and what is now referred to as the people division of an organization. And here again, I was extremely fortunate that the company that I was placed in during that era of my life was a $1 billion organization. So when we think about what I was exposed to and the kind of professionals that I intersected with every day, even as a temporary employee covering for somebody who was on maternity leave, to my earlier point about how my mind works and how awkwardly bold I can get from a place of curiosity and learning, this is where I was able to absorb and be mentored indirectly about different professions within the people space. And it really resonated with me. It was very interesting to me. It was very intrinsically motivating for me to continue learning as much as I could about what people were doing. How holistically did it intersect with their natural talents versus brute force application of what they were expected to do? There's all sorts of things I could say about that, but my answer's already been too long. And it is now 20 some years later. And interestingly enough, I'm still lasering in on the fine science and art that is career development, which is, of course, a broad and expansive, self-driven, sponsorship-boosted journey, and career advancement, which is a milestone. And it's a particular set of milestones that happen in career development. And I should also say, in case anybody's wondering, if I think about this all the time and read it, the answer is no. Outside of work, you'll find me meditating, reading a whole variety of genres, or binge watching my latest streaming obsession. And so it's not work all the time, research, study all the time. There's also space that I create to have a full life as well.
I have so many follow-up questions. I don't even know where to start. But so funny thing, music is important for me as well, and I did it the other way around. I started law school while I was learning music. I became an attorney, but I almost dropped out of law school to go study music. So how long did the law school thing last? Like 1 year, and then you were like,
not very long. Not very long. Just a couple of months, honestly. And since I didn't pay anything for it, it was not a complex decision for me to make. I loved sports and constitutional law. I was far less fond of blue booking and family law. That just tore at my heart a lot. And I don't know how to do anything passively or subtly when it comes to academics or school environments. And if I wasn't there on full scholarship, I would have stayed with it and gone through the whole program. But it was something where there wasn't a financial debt tied to it. And the reason I stayed in the area was because I didn't want to leave my roommate with all of the rent. And so fortunately, there was a way to achieve all of the things in that new direction for me. But that's really interesting that you were a lawyer, but music was what's
It's
in your heart.
it's amazing. So I love how it's almost like a Renaissance thing, right? Because you had music, you had English, a little bit of law. You were, you know, in practice, just looking at a lot of people, looking at what it meant to build a career, and you started looking at people in a different way and more like a holistic way, right? And understanding people and how they build careers. So let me ask you about you as a people leader. What do you want your work environment, whatever that is, right? It might be Ascendion, it might be another company, a previous company. Ultimately, for you, the values that you always bring to any work environment, what do you want that work environment to look like?
That is a great question. The answer is very simple, but it's also very hard for people to land. It's two things. One is a leadership team that is truly committed to the transformation and are trusting enough and safe enough with each other to debate it out and to disagree, while at the same time, 10 minutes later, laugh at how passionate they were with each other in that disagreement. That's a really rare gem, but I live it every day here in my current role. And that is something I wish for everybody in any organization, is to have a leadership team that has oxygen in the room, intelligence in the room, qualified, credible points of view in the room, but also the strength to move forward liking each other just as much as they did before the debates.
Right.
And the differences started to, the different points of view started to surface. So that's number one. I think we've all seen what happens in a ripple effect when the opposite is true.
Mm.
When the organization's leadership team fundamentally cannot agree to disagree, or does not trust each other, or do not have the interpersonal chemistry where they can self-regulate in the moment and take a step back and have joy over how they ranted and raved at each other, and then said, "Oh my gosh, we've been ranting and raving at each other on this topic for 40 minutes. This is hilarious. We gotta make a decision and move on." Now, not hilarious, but having a healthy sense of, yes, what I do is important. Yes, my role is important, but also equally so are a lot of other people in this conversation.
Yeah.
So that health of the team at the top is one thing. The other thing is connection to what the company actually does. When we have people at any level, in any role, any degree of tenure, who do not relate or cogitate what the company does, it quickly becomes difficult for them to sustain a sense of engagement, empathy, and patience over time. And so, to your great question, that's another factor that I, in an ideal environment for myself, and what I would want for other people as well, is the type of culture and environment where anyone can ask anybody about what they believe the company does and come together and really discuss that and deconstruct that and problem solve that in a healthy and meaningful way. And if you're in a publicly traded company, there are annual reports that can be fed, that can be downloaded and fed into an AI tool and summarized for people. There's also, for companies that don't have publicly available materials like that, there's internal networks that can help to uplift and clarify for people. Well, what do we do? Some people who have very healthy, long tenures with an organization quite well remember the golden era of when the organization did this. But now, in this era of its growth, it does that, and maybe they relate to that a little less. The ideal circumstance is where the questions can come forward, and when those questions are addressed, the recipient is self-driven enough to then go into those deeper layers and ensure that they have a fundamental grounding in that understanding. And again, it's any department, any job. It shouldn't matter if it is an intern who is spending a summer with an organization, or if it's somebody who has been with the organization for 30 plus years. Knowing what the current era of what the company's ambitions are is extremely important in order to innovate in an agentic way for this era of work.
I love it. Thank you. Thank you for that answer. I have a personal and not a personal, but I want your personal view on a topic that can be very personal. Is DEI under attack?
DEI, the acronym is under attack. The soul of it, I don't feel is under attack, because I don't think at scale the planet went from having compassion for working moms to disregarding them. I don't think that is what we're looking at. But what I do think has been happening over time is that when people hear or see those three letters placed together, they jump to a lot of assumptions,
right,
and prior experiences that have given them a particular point of view on the acronym. So I think your word usage is really good. You use the words under attack. It can certainly feel that way if we let the news wires own the conversation and drive the narrative. But it's everybody's invitation to feel empowered to advance the conversation and drive the narrative in a way that they prefer and that more authentically reflects what they see, feel, and experience. Every time I come across a conversation about DEI, a post about DEI, a Reddit or a subreddit about DEI, I see many, many more things being inserted and intersected in the conversation that may or may not have any application at all to diversity, equity, and inclusion in the world, in the workplace, or institutions of education. However, human beings, as we are, as a species, we can go multiple channels at the same time. And so to this wonderful topic, that's my point of view on it. And it's also been my personal experience. Allyship to underrepresented communities. I've been very open about this in the things that I've said. Allyship to underrepresented communities that one is not part of can be a very clumsy attempt, and both to ask for help if you're a member of the community, as well as to offer help if you're an outsider to the community. And so where that can sometimes clash by accident or intentionally is in that clumsiness. Someone who has not actually lived the experiences of a community member, but wants to authentically demonstrate that they want to be an ally and a champion of it, will not necessarily have the language, the phraseology, the point of view that the community may expect them to. And so it becomes clumsy really quickly. And that's unfortunate, but it's also part of a growing process. So I believe that if we can all take a step back and recalibrate what it is that we're actually talking about, what it is that we're actually trying to solve for, I like to think that we can find some more health and see some more empathetic perspectives, reinvigorating the advancement of the conversation.
I love it. Thank you. And that's very clear and inspiring as well, right? And the fact that, it's one thing what we see on the news. It's another thing, what the underlying values continue to be, right? And then there is advice on how to approach it and how to have the conversation. And I like that very much. What do you value the most in people? What makes you trust someone?
Ooh, oh my goodness. What makes me trust someone? Here's what makes me trust someone. When they are not in the room, what am I, in a repeated fashion, encountering when their name comes up? And it's over a period of time. And it's also very context driven. Yes, there will be moments where there's a direct test of a person, where important information is given to one person and one person only. And if it finds its way back to me through 8 other people, then I can't trust this person. But that's not what the everyday approach that I take is. That everyday approach that I take is to give people the benefit of the doubt that their intentions are good, that their efforts are meaningful. And then I'll have my own set of observational and direct data that, as I lean in and listen and learn and get educated by the masses around me, there's going to be some strong patterns, particularly as we move up in the leadership hierarchy. There's going to be some undeniable patterns of the things that continuously come up about individuals who are first among equals, who are high potentials, who are named and known as the future of the company. And that does not happen because they have misused trust of others around them at all levels. That happens because they have en masse secured the trust of people who directly and indirectly depend on their intelligence to lead them in right ways. What a beautiful question. I loved that one.
I have the flip side of that one now. What disappoints you? And this can be work, personal. What things will go like?
What disappoints me? There's a spectrum to bad behavior. So for the sake of answering the question, I'm going to leave out the all the way over here, the things that are obvious, the gross violations, the what were they thinking moments in time, and I'll go a little bit towards the sort of like the gray areas that along that spectrum sometimes give people, as it should, some additional pause. It's, should I feel disappointed? Should I feel empathetic? Should I feel some sort of mashup between the two? What disappoints me is an offer that is not authentic. I get very disappointed when someone asks me, what do you think? But they don't authentically want to know what I think. They want to hear me say, you are correct. That is the right idea. That is the right answer. That is the way it should look, sound, and feel. And so it disappoints me that they took the time and my time to say, I really want your point of view on this. I really want to know what you think. But if you don't actually want to know what I think, then don't ask me. It's okay. Go with what you want to do. That is the best way I can summarize and explain what disappoints me. And if it's not me, if it's about someone I care about, it could be as simple as someone saying, I will sign up for this initiative that you're spearheading, and you can count on me to do this by this date for you. And then if I hear that someone on the team has done multiple follow-ups, has reached out multiple times, and the person's nowhere to be found, that disappoints me.
Yeah.
And it all comes back to that root in the tree of having offered, and then I'm not going to say that in the moment maybe it wasn't an authentic offer. That's not for me to say, but that through line is where the disappointment can rise, because someone could have made other choices along the way had the support been more material, and had the alignment been more effective in what was extra offered for.
Very good. Third act of our podcast here, we talked about Ascendion. We talked about your journey, your leadership style, your views on the world. Let's talk a little bit about culture in action, if you will, and make it more, exchange more. Different sizes, right? You are leading 11,000 people across the world. Right now, I'm leading 70 plus people across South America. I've led teams as big as 200 people. So not as big as you, but this can go, both ways. How do you ensure that teams feel connected? How do you do that with 11,000 people? It's massive, right? So what's your take on that?
The first thing is to distribute a language for the culture.
Okay.
About culture. And it doesn't have to be a 700-page coffee table book, but it helps to provide the organization with a language so that anywhere they go, when they are inevitably asked, what is the culture like at your company? Also, any number of business scenarios. Clients will have an interest in our culture. Candidates will have an interest in our culture. People within the organization will have an interest when it comes to our culture. And because we have such a velocity-rich offering to the markets, we want to make sure that it's very transparent and very clear to anybody who's interested in us that we are founded upon 4 core values. And those 4 core values are boldly optimistic, relentlessly curious, deeply empathetic, and an ally to our clients and people. And to the listeners' ears, I like to think that they can feel the amount of work that went behind those word choices. They are really, really beautiful. They sparkle like gems. And I'm going to focus on the last one. The word ally is very important and meaningful for Ascendion. An ally is different from a friend. An ally is the person that has your back, not only when times are great, but also when times are tough. An ally is more than a fan. An ally is more than an acquaintance. Not to get into a conversation about war, but in military terms, empires and dynasties, they looked at the world from a, well, who is our ally? Who is aligned and loyal to the mission? And so here as well, that allyship to our clients, it's very important to us that our clients know that we are an ally to their technological journey. And it's important that in our culture, our people resonate with that as well, allies to each other. So your scenario, your real-time scenario, where it's a culture of this size versus a culture of this size, one of the things that can help cut through and clarify are core values. Because once you have that, then you have, as we say in Ascendion, your values are the seeds. Your culture is the garden. So it doesn't matter what your tenure, level, or your role is. You can contribute directly to the garden. That too, from a word choice perspective, very intentional, because all kinds of people are going to walk through the garden. What will they see? What will they feel? What will they observe? And you should feel empowered and enabled to have a direct hand in what it is for them to experience that. In other words, what it is for them to experience our culture. Now, we have a lot of points of proof that go well beyond beautiful phrases and statements. We've got global culture teams. We've got inclusion resource groups. We have strong focus on social impact initiatives. And that's important so that when people take a closer look, they can feel assured that it's not just lovely speak on a podcast. We have things that we can point to that are always happening, that represent the point of proof in our culture statements, our culture principles, our core values. And so once you have, no matter what your company size is, once you have those core values in place, that becomes the great, underpinning to decisions, to behavior, to innovation, to change management, to compensation, you name it. If it's built on core values, then the things that come thereafter can take flight in a much more meaningful and authentic way.
I love it. A question again, not a follow up, but like how because it's so big, um, how do you ensure that people feel seen and understood as your company keeps growing, and how do you avoid I worked in large corporations before. I worked in Tata Consultancy Services, 500,000 people across the world. They probably are way bigger right now, right? But when I was working there back in the day, that was their size. And there's a point where people start feeling or complaining that they feel like a number, right? And even that back in the time we were given like an employee number, and you were using that employee number for a million things in the system, et cetera, et cetera. So that made you feel more like a number. But how do you avoid that? What are some of the things that you do um, to help people feel seen, understood, and valued?
People seeking to be seen and valued can refresh around that emotion by getting quite introspective. This is like everything else today. It's going to be a long-winded answer, but organizations are not built to mind read, and they're not built to customize an experience down to the individual level across. If we think about some of the largest companies, there are some companies that have 1 million employees. Right. There are some companies that have 500,000 employees. And so in the new world of work, I think it actually works in reverse. If you want to be heard and if you want to be seen, you owe it to yourself to introspectively consider, what is it to listen to you? What is it to see you? What is it when you enter the room, when you're on a call, when you are bringing forward a point of view? Because the organization cannot respond to something it doesn't have access to. Whenever I hear sentiments like that, which are valid, they're not coming from a place that I have any gripes with, I understand. At the same time, in any relationship, and many generations in a 4-generation workforce for the first time in history, there are generations that lean into the nature of the relationship to their company a little differently than generations before them. That's okay. That's what we want. We want that kind of diversity to keep the world moving forward. But there is a difference between the relationship that a generation that literally could not leave their house for 2.5, 3 years has with an employer, that a generation that has been in the workforce for 25 plus years, 35 plus years, the kind of relationship that they feel that they have with their employer. And so in that different set of perspectives and experiences, to your point, somebody might come to a place where they think, I'm just a number. Nobody sees. Does anybody care that I'm feeling this? Does anybody care that I'm going through this? And rather than approach that with a yes or no answer, which again, companies are not built at the individual level to materially move that needle in a yes or no fashion, I would ask for all of us to do the internal work necessary and reteach ourselves, what is it this company does? What is my role on paper for contributing to what the company does? And what am I currently developing in a self-driven fashion to go outside of that box of the role on paper to help the organization see and hear me and the value of my point of view? it's not too long ago, I shared this fundamental belief that I have with officer level leaders in the organization. And that as leaders continue to develop and move up in the organization, what becomes its own form of capital is their point of view and how they arrived at it. Because when you are accelerating on your leadership journey, less and less to almost the point of non-existent is the company going to need you for administrative things, for tactical things, for clerical things. They will need your brain, and they will invest if you come forward with a point of view that is credible, qualified, well articulated, validated through research, validated through networks, and you bring that forward. If, by contrast, you're waiting to be asked for your point of view, if you're waiting to be tapped on the shoulder and handed a channel by which to speak, you might be waiting, especially if a company has 1 million employees, you might be waiting a very, very long time for that. Human nature, big as companies can get, as powerful as companies can get, human nature is such that we lean in and we look and we listen when there is something quite interesting or captivating or charismatic to look and listen towards. That could be you. And then you will not be a number anymore. You will be a thought leader. You will be a first among equals. You will be a 10x influencer, either in your business, in the market, in the industry, and it will happen very, very quickly if you take command of the room.
Got it. How do you identify and nurture leaders? You talked a little bit about it, but tell me more about that.
How do I identify leaders? I think you said identify and nurture. Is that right? Or
yes.
Yeah. How I identify leaders are a couple of things. One of which I'm going to steal directly from our CEO, because it's something that he mentored me on, and it's initiative. People have access to the same amount of information. People typically have access to the same amount of information on the intranet, on their company intranet. They have access to a company directory. They have access to the company LinkedIn page. They have access to the company press releases. They have access to the interviews and podcasts and things that leaders are on. So everybody has access to this. But the leader is somebody who takes initiative and utilizes that information while also listening with expertise on what people are conveying to them, and then making it really easy for those around them to see themselves advancing their vision. The person, again, and I'll say that again, the person that makes it really easy for people to see themselves in what they're trying to achieve, in what their vision is, that is a leader. And that too has nothing to do with level or tenure or department. You come in and you study and you network and you learn and you ideate and you communicate and you make it easy for people to resonate with what it is that's coming from you. You're a leader. How you nurture that depends on experience. Leaders at different levels are in need of different things because they've had only so much context or exposure to business complexities. So the nurturing could be for entry level and early careers. The nurturing is to building a foundation, to building fluency. As you move up in leadership responsibility and leadership visibility and leadership accountability, then you're nurturing for enterprise level mastery. Then you are nurturing for being somebody who influences internally as well as externally. Then you're nurturing very much, and then if you go like farthest, then you're nurturing on what their intrinsic motivators are. Because in some circumstances, they've already made all their money, but what they're looking to do in this particular role is leave a legacy. For some people, it's less about the legacy, and there's something very precise that they want to look back on their career and say that they did, and that is their intrinsic motivation. And so it becomes far more customized. It becomes far more it becomes far more sharp and individual, and deep is not the right word, but it's they have reached the stage of their life and their career where they're very, very close to knowing exactly what it is that they want to get out of this experience. Again, when you go right at the start to a college graduate or someone 2 years out of school, it's a very different kind of nurturing and service that you want to provide to their development as a leader.
Very good. Alice, one last random question to you. How much time do you spend in the US versus traveling to all the other locations that Ascendion has? Do you travel much, or do you stay mostly in the US?
For now, I mostly travel within the United States, but I am planning to go to India in Q4, and I'm really looking forward to that for so many reasons. The primary reason, of course, being amongst our wonderful ascenders who are based in India. I'll be going to multiple states in India, and then we have a flagship, beautiful celebration and recognition ritual in Ascendion that takes place in Mexico. Some organizations call it President's Club or Chairman's Circle. We call it Ascent, and it's something that is just a wonderful, wonderful time, and to celebrate people who made impact, who delivered outcomes, and who achieved excellence at scale for our clients and the communities that they serve.
I love it. Alice, this has been amazing. Thank you for gifting me 1 hour of your time. So many valuable
I enjoyed it.
Advice. I appreciate it, and I hope that sometime we can do it again in the future.
Absolutely. You know where to find me.